We're going to do some basic compositing in this lesson. We're going to layer some video clips, backgrounds, and graphics. Let's go over to the Working Files folder, open up Projects, and roll on down here to 1202 Layering Graphics. We're starting with kind of a blank slate here, no sequences yet. We're going to start from scratch here so we get used to the idea of making sequences. So I want to make a sequence using the background looping number 3. That'll be the first clip we're going to use here. So that'll be the basis for our sequence. If you right-click on it and check out the properties, you'll see that it is an HD clip, 1920 by 1080, 2997 frames per second. So it's NTSC, and it's about 8 seconds long. So there you go. We know we're going to make a regular HD sequence here. So I'm just going to drag that down to this new item icon. That's how you make a new sequence that uses the characteristics of the thing you dragged to it. There you are. Let's just change the name of the sequence. Just click on it to highlight it. You can type in something like layering. There you go, layering sequence, just to kind of keep track of things. And it puts this clip on it. To kind of expand our view a little bit, press the backslash key just to give you a little more real estate to work with here. And since we're going to be working only with video, you can drag this little guy down. If you put your cursor between the video and audio tracks, you get that little parallel line with 2 arrows on it. You can pull things down that way. You can do it also between the headers over here as well. So just drag it on down. We have this background looping clip here. It looks like this. And I call it looping because when I get to the end, I can add another instance of it and it'll continue as if it was seamless. I want to put something on top of it. And we're going to do this a lot, but I just wanted to kind of walk you through this. Let's put this Fieldstone Farm sign on top of it. If you just double click on it, you'll see here inside the source monitor, it's just this graphic. The black area is transparent. And if I right click on it, you'll see that it's not exactly HD size. It's a little bit different. It's 1872 by 1584, which means it's not as big as 1920 in width, but it's taller than 1080 in height. So you'll see how that comes to play when we drop it inside the sequence. So when you drop an image like this or a graphic on this, it'll appear in the sequence here in its original size. When you view it here in the source monitor, it shows you the whole thing no matter what size it is. Let's drag it over to here. And there we go. And now you can see it actually fills the frame a little bit more than it does over in the source monitor because the source monitor shows you the full range of it there. So here it's at its regular size, which is a little bit larger than the size of this HD screen. So we need to bring that down a bit. So I'm going to click on it to make it active. And I want to change its size. So I need to go to Effect Controls, click on Motion. And by clicking on Motion, I put this bounding box around the clip. To see the whole bounding box, I'm going to go out here to, let's say, 10%. And then there's the bounding box. You can see that's the real size of this clip. It's taller than HD and not quite as wide as the HD. I'll go back to Fit here. What I want to do is I want to make it smaller. Now I can make it smaller by opening this up and changing scale here by just dragging on it to do that. But an easy way to do that is just to grab one of these handles. Any handle is fine, whether it's top, bottom, corner. It'll reduce it in a uniform way. And that's because uniform scale is checked by default here. So if you grab any bounding box, it'll change it uniformly. You can't grab a side. It has to be a bounding box handle like that, either here or down the corner. And now I want to position it. I can leave it in the center, but ultimately I want to move it around, let's say over to there or something like that. That just might be something that would work well. I also want to take this graphic on the bottom and have it off to the side. But before I do that, I'm going to extend the length of this thing. Now, whenever you add a graphic or a still image, the default duration is 5 seconds. That's set inside Preferences. You can change that if you want, but it's really not all that important. You can just take this thing and just drag the end of it and make it as long as you want. There you go. It's still just a still image. It doesn't change any. This guy displays in the background. So I'll click on this again. I'm going to click on Motion again, and I've got this position where I want, but I think it should be a little bit larger. There we go. And now I want to take this clip on the bottom and position it off to the side. Well, if I just click on it, click on Motion to get its handles there, its bounding box. If I start shrinking it, it shrinks it all together like that. That's not what I want. I want to just shrink it from left to right. So I need to go over here and uncheck Uniform Scale. And now if I drag a side boundary here, it'll shrink it like that. I want to move it over, so I just grab anywhere here inside the bounding box and slide it over like that. Maybe make it just a little bit taller so we know that it fills the screen. Now we've got this little graphic here with our little still image off on the right-hand side running along next to it. Something like that, which looks kind of nice. All right, let's move on from there to another little exercise. Let's take the other background looping graphic, this one number 2, and drag it next to this one on the timeline, or on the sequence, to the right there. See how it snaps there? There we go. Now I want to extend the graphic to the right. I'm going to press the backslash shortcut key to expand my view. I can take this and drag it all the way to the right like that. And I want to move it around too. But the thing is, if I move it around over here, it's going to move it around back here. So the way to deal with that is just to put a little cut here. So I'm going to press my down arrow to move my current time indicator to right where that edit point is. There you go. Now I'm going to get my cut, my razor tool, by pressing the C key or clicking over here on the razor blade. I'm going to cut right there. So now when I work with this graphic over here, any changes I make will not show up over here. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool by clicking here or pressing the V shortcut key. There we go. And now if I want to work on this one, I can take it and move it around. But first order of business is to deal with this. I'm not just going to have it run behind there. I want to put it down the bottom of the screen. And this thing will just roll down the same way this guy rolled to the left. So let's click on it and go to motion. And if I start pulling it down by just dragging it down, that'll work fine. But when I start shrinking it, it's going to be uniform all the way across, right? We don't want that. So we uncheck uniform. We just want to shrink it down this way, like that, perhaps. We'll figure out the exact height later. Let's pull it down to the bottom, like that, so it just runs along the bottom of the screen. When you've got one clip selected like this, if you click on another one, it'll automatically select that one. You'll be able to go from the motion effect in one to the motion effect in another, back and forth. As long as you can find some place where you can click it, then you'll be able to go from one to the other. If you deselect motion like that and click on a clip, it won't work. You can't select it that way. But if you have the motion selected on some clip, you can go back and forth. Now I want to move Fieldstone a little bit out of the way like that, maybe make it a little bit smaller. Very good. What I want to do now is I want to put another clip over here so we can have an exterior shot that resides over here in a nice layer. So I've got this shot, the dressage external MP4. If I just pop that open in the source monitor by double clicking it, that's how it looks. I want to just have this wire horse over here, not the whole scene with the trees. So I'm just going to take this clip and add it to this sequence by just dragging it over here like this, right there. And it covers everything up, just like that. It's all covered up, which is not really what we want, of course. We'll deal with that in a second. And it's not long enough either. Well, what I want is just a still image. I don't want to have this thing moving around. I want it to be like a graphic. So I'm going to just right-click on it. And when you right-click on it, you have this option of doing a frame hold. You just say, okay, we'll do frame hold. So it's what are you holding on, the in point, the out point, or a marker? You can put a marker inside here. Well, the in point's fine. I'll just say hold on the in point. And now it's going to be a freeze frame. And now it's still only that length. But if I take my rate stretch tool over here and drag this all the way to the right, that'll stretch it out, but it'll still be just a freeze frame. And it says it's, much slower now, 37%, but in fact it's just a freeze frame, so the rate is irrelevant. But the sound is odd, right? You can hear the sound in the background. So let's get rid of that. I'm going to lift this thing up a little bit. I'm going to take my selection tool again, and I want to click on this and delete it. Well, if I click on it and delete it, it's going to get rid of that and the video. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to click away to deselect. Now I'm going to hold on my Alt or my Option key, Alt in Windows, Option in Mac. And now I click on it, and now I'm selecting just the audio. If you scroll up here, you'll see that the video is not selected, just the audio is selected. When the audio is just selected like that, I can press the Delete key or the Backspace key, and it's gone. So let's get rid of that, because we don't really want any sound here. It's just kind of a graphic setup here. All right, now we've got this graphic there, and there's other guys behind it. But how do we reveal what's behind it? Well, we need to do something. We can make this smaller. If I click on it, go to Effect Controls, click on Motion. We can make it smaller like that, right? And that could be sufficient, maybe. We could have it be behind Fieldstone Farms' sign by taking the sign and dragging it above it like that. That's a possibility. But what I'd rather do is have that be smaller and have it be just showing that part of the clip. So I'm going to apply the crop effect to it. I'm going to crop out the stuff on the right and crop out some other stuff as well. So I'm going to apply the crop effect to it. Let's go over to Effects. If you've got the color correction group that I asked you to make before, crop will be right there near the top. If you don't, just type in CROP and you'll be able to find it. Drag crop over to this clip here, the dressage external, that one there. Nothing will happen, which is good. Click on the word crop here in the Effect Controls panel for that clip. Make sure it's active. Click there. And now it has these bounding boxes, but this is not the motion bounding box. This is the crop bounding box. So motion looks like that, has a little anchor point in the middle, but crop does not. So we need to use crop to crop in the edges. So let's crop in like that. Maybe crop a little bit from the bottom, and maybe crop a little bit from the top like that. And now I'm thinking it needs to be a little bit larger. Now some people might be tempted just to grab here and start pulling these guys and make it larger, but that would be the crop again. If I grab in the middle, I can pull this around like this. This is a little trick inside Windows, but this usually doesn't work inside a Mac, so you won't be able to move the crop around in a Mac at last word. I think this is just a Windows trick. So let's click away on motion, and now we can change the size of it. Notice that it shows the whole bounding box for the whole clip. This part was cropped out. So now if we just change the size, we pull it up like so. It'll be uniform like that. We can move it around a little bit like so. It's still behind the sign, which is kind of nice, but we don't need to use that little tool right now. Leave it like that. So that's how you position that guy. What I want to do now is add a title. So let's go on down here to the project panel. I created a title for this. I'm going to explain how you make titles in an upcoming chapter, so I just took care of that for you now. Here's this title. I want to put that on top of everything, and right now I got things kind of jumbled up here. I really can't find a place to do it. Yours will look different probably, but I'll tuck the scroll bar here just to kind of give me some room. And there's no video track 5 here, but when I drag this above video 4, it makes a video 5 for me automatically, which is nice. It's right up there. I can drag the title out for the length of the clip as well, and it looks like that. And now that I've done that, I'm thinking it would be nicer to have this little banner just kind of fit right along the top and along the bottom. So let's just go back and fix that. So I'm going to go back and click on the background looping thing there. And I want to change its position a little bit and change its size. So it's not uniform scale. That's good. So I'll click on it. I'll start shrinking it down here and see how that looks. Like so. Change the position so it's down a little bit like that. Maybe a little bit farther down. There you go. And I'll make it a little bit wider just to make sure we're off the edge there. There we go. So that looks pretty darn good. Let me show you one more thing. Some people are concerned about what's called title safe. If they view this in a television set, will they be able to read all the text? And that's a little bit old school because that refers to older TV sets, typically NTSC TV sets from North America generally. And they would cut off part of the image. Now, that doesn't happen anymore in HD, but just in case you're still concerned about that, the way you get the title safe rulers on is by going to the panel menu, bring it down here to the bottom, way down to the bottom, the safe margins. There you go. The title safe margin is the inside one. You get the little center points there too, helping you line things up. And the outside one's called action safe. Action safe means that you can be pretty certain that any action in your scene will be visible if it's inside that box, and you can be pretty sure if any text will be visible in your scene if it's inside the inner box. That's title and action safe. But those are kind of old school. Not worried about those guys too much anymore. I'll undo those. So that's how you do some basic compositing or layering. And here we work with 4 different elements. We've got a title, we've got a background video clip, we've got a regular video clip, and we've got a graphic. And we put them all together in this lovely composition.